Hello again, this is Dr. Lindsay. And in this video, what I like to do is go over something called chaining with the CPI. And it's to solve problems with the CPI. Now, the way we've done it so far is that we have this basket, and then we compare the price of the basket in every month or every year. But you can imagine that things in the basket change. What people buy changes. There's items in the basket now that weren't in there 10 years ago. And there's items that were in there 10 or 20 years ago that aren't in there now. And the percentages of what people buy change. So they might have been buying a whole lot of hula hoops at one time, but now they're not buying any more hula hoops. So the problems, almost all the problems that result of the CPI producing some bad results are because the basket changes. What people are buying, what the typical family is buying changes. So the solution really is that the basket has to be updated regularly. Well, that causes its own little set of problems, because then how do you compare baskets from year to year, month to month, if you're always changing them? So the problem here is the basket needs to be changed. The basket needs to be updated. Needs to be updated. And the reason is because what the typical household buys changes. And then we have some bad results when we're trying to measure the CPI. The way to get around this problem is just to update the basket a whole lot more. So say that the base year here, we know what the base year is, 2017, because it's 100. Say by the time we get to 2019, we realize, hey, the basket has changed over the last couple of years. People aren't buying the same things in proportions, quantities that they were in 2017, and we need to update this. So what we do is in 2019, we create another basket. So we'll call the first one basket number 1, and then we'll create basket number 2. And it will reflect what people are now buying in 2019. And we'll measure all the prices in that basket, and we'll say it comes out to $30,000. Then in 2020, instead of measuring basket number 1 anymore, we'll measure basket number 2. And say in 2020, basket number 2 is $33,000. We know what the inflation rate is. The best measure of the inflation rate here between 2019 and 2020 will be basket number 2, which will be 10%. Now we have a nice, accurate measure of inflation between those 2 years. Now, what about the index? How does that index ratio with the price of the basket? Well, what we do is we take the index for 2020 will be calculated as follows. We'll take the index from 2019, which is 125, and multiply that by 1 plus 0.1. 0.1 is 10%. And that comes out to 137.5. So our index now will be 137.5. So we just take the index and multiply it by 1 plus the inflation rate. So the index now for 2021 would be 137.5 times 1 plus whatever that inflation rate is going from 20 to 21. And that'll be the new index number. Or you could write it as, instead of 137.5, as 125 times 1.1 times 1 plus the inflation rate of the next year. So we can just keep adding on every year a multiple of 1 plus the inflation rate. This sets the index, it makes it like a chain, where every year we're adding one link more to the chain. It solves the problems that we have with having a nice, not having a good measure of inflation. And we don't have to change the base year. We can still have 2017 as the base year and leave that as 100. And we still have the inflation rate being the growth rate of the index. So if we measure the growth rate of the index, we'll still get the inflation rate. And since this index is what's published and the inflation rate is what's published, there's not any problems. So the growth rate of the index from 125 to 137.5 will be 10%. Now there's other measures of price indexes. The CPI is just one of the most common ones that people like to look at because it measures the cost of living for the typical family, and because it comes out every month. But there are other measures. And another popular measure is the producer price index. This is published by the same people and comes out every month. It's the PPI, the producer price index. It's the prices that producers, the products that they're buying, how much are they going up in price? The sellers, they're buying different products. Okay, the producers or sellers are buying the pizza machines, not the pizzas. So we take a look and we make a basket of what sellers buy. And then we look at how that basket is going up in price. And then we get this producer price index to show how prices are changing for the products that sellers are buying.